Well, again, I'm Isabel Reyes-Todd, and I basically grew up watching my dad racing road, my brother, my uncles, and my grandfather were also bike racers, but typical child didn't want to do what my dad was into. Same with my brother. And in our kind of early adult life, we did decide to take on cycling. And I was the only person in my family to get interested in gravel. So I like the adventure aspect of it, just being independent, etc. But my first race, I did ask my dad, can you come with me just in case I get flat tires or I get lost, etc. And that was a good experience, but ever since then, I just decided to learn for myself, push my limits, and I finished my first century ever in a gravel event. I finished the DK 200 event, so a lot of things that I did on my own, and I hope that I can share some of the tips with you guys. So this group that we have here, it's been very helpful for women to get resources, etc. Hold on a second, my dog's barking. Sorry, I have two Jack Russell Terriers. So just connecting with other women to find out more information about the event is helpful. Lately, events such as DK 200, the Mid-South 100 have initiatives to allow more women to participate, especially if there's a lottery or a cap on how many people can participate. So just getting women involved in these events has been very, very important lately. Personally, I was inspired by the 200 Women, 200 Miles initiative from the DK 200 in 2017, and a group of women from Chicago with very little access to gravel roads. Chicago it's obviously far from anywhere where you can get some good training if you don't have a car and so on. And they trained all winter long, and all of them finished the DK 200 on single speed. So it's very inspirational for me, and hope that you find a group that you know of, or again, within the Girls Gone Gravel group on Facebook, there's a lot of community there to keep you motivated. Looking for a gravel event, the Gravel Cyclists website has the year-round calendar for the whole country where you can find a gravel event, and also bikereg.com. And if you've never ridden on gravel before, it's great that you guys mentioned technique on riding in the next webinar. I do recommend that it's important to keep a momentum since the surface is slippery, and you just sometimes the slower you go, it might make it harder for you, such as rollers, which they're not quite steep hills, but it's just enough that if you are at a complete stop or slow down, it could make it difficult for you to get over that. It's good to practice riding on different kinds of surfaces, like loose gravel, dirt roads, even over rocks and single track. And some tips for when you are going up a hill, if the surface is loose, always good to keep your bottom on the saddle and to just keep pedaling. Instinctively, you may want to stand up right when you're going up a gravel hill, but you'll find soon enough that you need that weight on your back wheel to get some traction. And when descending, I think generally with other kind of bike descending, you want to have a good grip, but not a tight death grip, and keep your arms loose, keep your upper body loose in case there's any kind of sliding, and to look ahead to where you're going. Obviously, looking straight down is not very helpful if you're descending on a windy road. Looking to where you want to go is key. And as you sign up for an event, whether it's a 60-mile 100-mile or 200-mile event, you want to have some kind of a training plan in place. Otherwise, the event will not go well. will not be a pleasant experience. So definitely look into either a coaching plan or a training system that's already been published. I think among the group here, we can maybe recommend some coaches or a plan like that, and to just be dedicated to put some miles in. And I'll talk about a little bit more about ways to find your, to log in the miles that you're looking for. And obviously, all of this brings in the need to have a work-life training balance. And we had a great seminar a couple of weeks ago about the entire family work-life balance, and I found that to be very helpful. I'm a full-time supply chain analyst. I have a 5-year-old, I have a husband, so I understand that all of this takes a balance. And so, reach out and read about that as well as you pursue your training plan. And another aspect here is, as you sign up for your first event or subsequent events, just to decide if you're going to do it to compete that day or if you're going to do it to complete. So competing would be trying to, beat a previous time that you had, or try to keep up with someone that, you'd like to hang on with. Or if your goal is just to finish, you want to just get the experience, you kind of don't know what you're in for, that's okay too. So, but definitely deciding on one or the other does help you have your mindset for the day. And if you have a buddy with either goal, that's even better. Always having a buddy is always great. So as you're looking at ways to get your miles in for your event, if you're looking at something that's like 5 or 6 months out, you have to put the miles in. Try signing up for a local fondo or a local gravel race. In this situation, you'll likely be around other people. You'll be able to test your gear. For example, your bike computer, make sure you download the route, you know how to follow it. You try out different nutrition, like what works for you, what doesn't, so that when you do go to your first big race, you don't have any surprises. So the point of testing your stuff is so that the day of your big race shouldn't have any, hopefully shouldn't have any new surprises there. And another thing you can try is pacing yourself at an organized event. You can try to see, okay, how does this pace feel for me, or how does that pace feel for me? So you can try different things. If you decide to get your miles in by yourself, that's something I've had to do before, just because partially for saving money or just because of my schedule. I did find that riding alone, I was comfortable with being alone, and that actually helped me later on at events like DK 200, where you find yourself alone for hours. You know how to, you're just more confident, navigating and kind of figuring things out by yourself. If you also go on a solo ride, you can get familiar with route planning, and Rachel Cohen had a great talk a few weeks ago about how to create your own route, how to find routes that people have already made, etc. And the benefit, like I said before, you can save some money and save it on a, Airbnb closer to your big race. Save it for your burger or whatever you choose. Talking about bikes that are helpful in gravel, what's pretty common are CX bikes used in cyclocross. Um, Generally, they already come with disc brakes, which allows you to put wider tires on your bike. Um, and the only difference you might feel between a gravel bike, I'm sorry, a CX bike and gravel bikes is that their cyclocross bikes are intended more for uh, agility, technical courses. So it may not be the most comfortable frame to ride on for, 6, 10, 20 hours. But they'll definitely allow you to have the wider tire that you need to ride on gravel. So a CX bike is a great place to start. Gravel bikes, which I think, as everyone knows, have become very popular. We've seen them on the Girls Gone Gravel Facebook, New Bike Day. The geometry there is definitely, it's designed for more stability, which brings you the comfort. Um, the geometry also designed for wider gearing, so you have more gearing options, like a 2-chain rings. And they also come with the bolts for attaching more bags on your bike. Some of them you can put a water bottle underneath the bottom tube. You can attach, the top tube bag. So there's already more options that come there for carrying your stuff. Whereas the CX bike, again, it's intended more for racing. You're not going to have those options. Another kind of bike that's been popular at events such as DK200, Grindero, where you're on long stretches of rocks, fire roads, are the ultra endurance bike packing bikes. The one I have pictured here is a Salsa Cutthroat. That picture is from the Tour Divide, so that's intended more for riding on, like I said, large rocks, very remote places where you're going to need more of like a mountain bike kind of handling. And again, you're going to see more options for carrying all of your bike packing needs. But I've been seeing those in gravel events, and people are really happy with the comfort that they get. You can get the widest tires probably that you can choose there if you're more comfortable with something like that. Okay, so now we're talking about what kind of tires are recommended in gravel. You're pretty much going to start with choosing between a clincher, which involves an inner tube on your wheel, or tubeless. And the main difference there is that if you have a clincher, you're going to obviously you have to deal with the inner tube if you have a flat. If you use tubeless, it's basically the tire on your rim with a sealant inside that acts as a kind of like a protectant if you had any puncture on your tire. Generally, it does the job. The sealant will do the job, and if need be, you can put an inner tube inside your tubeless tire. And looking at the different treads there, I have a smooth tread. Then there's also tires that have just slightly more tread. And again, it all depends on the surfaces. Generally in Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa, we have more of the kind of crushed limestone color gravel. It's not very rocky or very technical, but if you go to places like DK200 in the Flint Hills or Mid-South, where you have more dirt roads and rock, probably want something with a little more tread. If you have a race that is 100% slick mud, you also want to go with something that has some traction, so you're not slipping all day, but also not too much traction that the mud gets trapped into your tires. So I have found personally that the tread from either the Maxxis Rambler or the picture I have here of the new Zip gravel tire have worked great for pretty much all the conditions. I ride something like that everywhere I go year round. And tire widths start between 38 millimeters up to 47 millimeters. So that's been pretty common with gravel bikes and tires. What to pack with you. So assuming your event is, always assume you're, self-supported. They usually say that they are. So I have a list of more of like the tools that you need and a list of nutrition kind of items that you need. So I recommend multi-tool with a chain breaker, a spare chain link. I've seen a pocket knife, actually, that was brought up recently amongst another talk I was having. Some tire sealant, sometimes they come in little tubes that fit easily in your bags, and a spare inner tube. I always bring one along, even if I have tubeless tires. A means to inflate your tire, whether it's with CO2 cartridges, inflator, or just a mini bike pump. Obviously a tire lever. If you're using electronic shifting, I recommend a spare battery. You never know what could happen. A mud stick, if you're in a muddy race, if the race does not give you one, you can always carry a paint stick with you. A bandana also can come in handy for any situation. And I recommend at least one gauze pad. If you don't have room for a first aid kit, at least something to cover your skin with, like with a bandana, is going to be good enough. If you're obviously injured and need more than that, then you probably need to stop and get help. And as far as your food, these are just the basics. We had a talk earlier about nutrition and eating for the day, calories, etc. But just basic nutrition items is if you need a refill hydration mix, whatever kind of snacks you're bringing in terms of like carbohydrate or salty snack, gels or blocks, and even room for a little bit of real food. If it's like a little rice cake, just something if you can fit that in. So where do we put everything? You saw the list of what to bring, and here are all the different kinds of bags and combinations. So I think generally it depends on the size of your bike frame, how long obviously you're going to be going, what you need to carry, but generally what you can find is a handlebar bag. You could use a frame bag, top tube bag, or a snack bag. Again, I'm a size 49 bike frame, and the frame bag doesn't usually work out so well for me. So I think the handlebar bag is something you can fit most of your goodies in. And then using something like a top tube bag or this snack bag on the lower right-hand corner help you to just reach in. Some people already unwrap their snacks, so you just reach down and snack on your goodies. If you're using the handlebar bag, it is a little tricky to reach over and unzip, so I don't recommend that for grabbing your food. Definitely something that's easy for you to reach into. And if you're also wondering whether to use for your hydration, whether to use bottles versus hydration packs, again, it depends on the weather. Are you going to have a really, really hot day? Especially riding here, if you're training and with COVID going on, you want to minimize your stops. Perhaps the hydration pack allows you to carry more water with you. They have compartments that you can stash some gels if you need to reach in there. And it's hands-free. So if you know you're going into an event where it's going to be very technical, very kind of unpredictable, and you don't want to be reaching for your water bottle, the hydration pack makes it very easy for you. I also found it to be easy when riding in the dark, riding at night. Um, if you can't see so well, like if you're not wearing a light on your helmet, for example, it's definitely easier to just sip on your hydration pack rather than reaching down and not being able to see so well. So I'm sharing with everyone what my setup is. Actually, for about 6 years, I had an aluminum cross bike. So I I got tired of only having one water bottle cage. And then last year, I got a Trek Checkpoint gravel bike. It's a carbon gravel bike, and it's size 49. And I do have the SRAM ETAP AXS electronic shifting with the wide gearing. Um, and I've found this bike to be very, very stable. Most conditions, I've ridden it pretty much very often in Illinois, but I've also ridden it at the Mid-South on a dry and bumpy year, also on a muddy year, and at DK 200. I'm using the gravel tire that I was showing you guys earlier, the Zip gravel tire, and also found that to be very, very stable and reliable in all surfaces. Going back to the electronic shifting, my brother happens to be a design engineer at SRAM, and he wanted us all to try ETAP. And I think it's very reliable. When you're shifting, your bike shifts for you. You don't have to think twice about what's going on there, so that you can focus on your event, how you're feeling, what's coming up next. So the electronic shifting is very, very helpful. And as far as bags, I use a handlebar bag in the front, and I use a top tube bag as well. So looking at when you are doing your first race, there are some tips that I have for sort of preparing and getting yourself organized. Under normal circumstances, some events have like a training camp, or perhaps it's not so far from where you live. Maybe you can go ride on the surfaces and maybe go find some of the hard spots so you're already familiar. But I understand if some places are multiple states away, it's definitely hard to reach and train there. So try to find, if you know your race will have a rocky section or a technical section, try to get out somewhere near, where you live to practice. Again, if your event is also multiple months away and the weather will be completely different than what you're training in, just be considerate of what the weather will be like. If you're from the south, it might be colder. If you go up north, if you live in the north, you might be in for a surprise of some heat that you're not used to, if we're talking like springtime. So become familiar with the conditions and the weather. If you're now getting into your week of your race, look at how the weather would be that day, and look at the wind speed and the wind direction. So if the first part of your race, you can see the direction of the wind, you'll have a headwind. You may have to try harder there, or vice versa. If you'll have a tailwind, okay, then you can see where you can take it easy or recover if you need to. So always good to study the weather and the wind directions. If your event has a pre-race shakeout ride the day before, um, recommend attending that, especially if you've driven multiple states to get there. You definitely need a chance to open up your legs, get familiar with the terrain. For example, this year, the Mid-South, we knew that it was going to rain the entire day. So the day before, it was also rainy, and I thought it would be best to try out my rain jacket and ride the day before Mid-South, even though it was raining. But you just have to do your best to get in the groove of how your race could be like. Some events have aid stations, so definitely read up on where they will be. Will they be, which mile markers they'll be at, what they will be offering. I still recommend that you carry more. Carry assuming that there is no aid station, just in case they run out. Sometimes you get there and all the food is gone or all the drinks are gone. So just find out what they offer, but also be prepared in case there isn't anything there. Some races have a checkpoint, maybe at the midway or at multiple stops. So if that checkpoint allows you to have like a family member waiting in a car or a little tent, then you can prepare for that. You can give them a bag, and then you can have some extra goodies in there in case you need to change something. And I'll talk a little bit more about what to do at checkpoints too, if you have one. And also, after your first event, write down what went wrong, what went awesome, what felt great, what didn't feel so great, so that you can keep track, maybe keep a journal and keep track of how your day went so that you can prepare for the next one. I think as for me, I take every new event that I do or training ride, and I still learn from it. So I just had a really, really hot day a couple months ago, and now I'm reading up on how to ride in the intense heat. If you do have an event where you are allowed a checkpoint stop, for example, at the Mid-South 100, you are allowed to stop at mile 50, and you can have someone waiting for you there. And if sometimes you're pretty tired from already riding in your event, and you may forget what you need to do next. So I usually write on a note card things that I need to do, just in case my brain is not 100% there at the moment. Some events I'm not prepared for a sunny day, so I have to remember to put on sunscreen or to eat something, and or what kinds of items you need to refill back into your bags. Some places, if it's really hot, you may want to put some ice in your jersey. If you're coming into your checkpoint at night, change your glasses so that you can see in the dark. So a checklist helps, or you can give it to your friend or family member, and they can be prepared for you when you get to your checkpoint. When you're starting at the starting line of the gravel event, for the most part, they are open field. You're with, men, women, all kinds of ages and groups in one field. So just try to stick to a place where you're comfortable with, or line up with a buddy, and try to be as safe as possible. Some events that are larger groups have starting waves, and that depends on what time you would like to finish at. So If you want to finish in so many hours, then you go with that group. And some places have it spread out by gender, but a lot of them it's just time waves. So something that I have found helpful was, even though I'm not finishing at a time with the faster group of people, is to start with a group that's slightly faster or slightly more experienced, so that you're kind of less of a risk to crash or have someone crash in front of you. And if you're by yourself, for example, and you'd like to draft behind a group or kind of hang on with a group, it's always good to, do what you can. If you have to fall back and maybe there's another group you can join, that's also helpful to keep your momentum. And another aspect, so you have your race planned out in your head. You've maybe gone there, and you're hoping for a perfect day, right? You're all set to go, but things also happen. You could have a mechanical that you just can't fix, or you do have one that you can fix in the moment. You could crash, you could lose a piece of gear, or just take a wrong turn. So things come up. Sometimes they're out of your control, or something that maybe you yourself forgot. For example, I didn't do a good job of carrying my mud stick at Mid-South, and I lost mine right away. So, you just, things happen. And I think what's important is to, if it's really bugging you, or you're really, really distracted in the moment, to stop, assess your situation. Maybe someone stops by to help you, or, you just decide, I'm gonna fix this right now, or I'm gonna deal with this. Plan what you're gonna do, and then make a decision. So if you decide, I'm gonna keep going without my mud stick today, that's great. Or if you decide to stop and just call it quits, either way, it's just important to decide what you're gonna do next. I had a situation at DK 200 here in the picture where we were about 50 miles from finishing, and my light died. I had an issue with my battery, and I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? It's completely pitch black night, and a woman, Sally, who I didn't know at the time, gave me her light. It wasn't the strongest light, but it was better than nothing, and we decided to ride at night together, and had a great experience. So just deciding to to improvise or do the best that you can in the moment, it does help you to move on, and to just always just keep in mind things can happen. And that's about all I had as far as gear and strategy and so on. So did anyone have anything else you wanted me to back up on, or to elaborate on?
Yeah, if you have questions, go ahead. You can put them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask. It's so much great information. Well, thank you so much. Very thorough. And if you stop sharing your screen, we'll be able to see. It's a little hard to see like if people. There you go. Libby, you have a question?
Oh, great comments so far.
Yeah, this is Libby Brown. I'm looking into bar bags, but I didn't know how it is, like if you're standing riding, is it how the bag sits? Will you hit it with your knees, or what's your experience?
Nope, I haven't had that happen to me. The only thing I've noticed, if you're considering a frame bag, sometimes if it's too full, it does kind of rub on your inner thighs, the frame bag.
Mhm.
But I've never had any issue with a handlebar bag because it's right under your handlebars. So I don't think so, unless anyone else has had any issues with handlebar bags.
And I saw that you use the or not.
Yes, I like that bag. The material is very durable. I know Laura uses the mousse. I forgot the name of the brand, but those also look really durable as well and roomy. It's the mousse bags.
Loose pack.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, and that's great to hear the feedback on the ETAP. I actually met a woman at Mid-South 2 years ago who had arthritis in her hands, and she said if it wasn't for ETAP that she wouldn't be riding her bike. So there's just many benefits of it. Obviously it makes it easier for you. I know my mom also has a little bit of arthritis, and she loves using ETAP, and it's very crisp and reliable.
Oh, hi, yeah, thank you. That's from me, Shannon. Yeah, I was this lacrosse goalie, and I, like over 40 miles, my wrist pain was what was stopping me. It wasn't my endurance or anything, but since I've gotten ETAP, now I can do 70, 80 milers and without the pain. So it's really was significant for me.
That's great. That's awesome.
Other questions? That was all. I feel like I'm glad that you had a slideshow and I can go back and watch it because there was so much good stuff. I was like, well, I'm not going to take notes because it's all like on this. It's all recorded. Who's planning an event in 2021? Who's planning to do something? What are you planning to do? You can put it in the comments, or because I think we've all come to the realization that we may not have any events in 2020.
Yeah.
This is Libby. I'm supposed to do the steamboat gravel. I was supposed to do it this year, but
Oh, yeah.
next year the 60, just because of the altitude. Coming from no altitude, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, Libby was trying to get me to do the virtual version with her here in Georgia until we saw the profile elevation. I was like, I don't think I'm in shape for that, Libby.
Yeah, I noticed that before gravel events were in the springtime, that's more popular in the spring, mostly because it can get so hot in the summer, but this year they were going to be more in the fall. So I hope that next year it's giving you more options. So hopefully next year, if things go back to normal, we hope you'll have options for the spring and the fall.
Yes, Big Sugar. Christy said she's got Big Sugar on her calendar. Hopefully it's still going to happen. And it looks like there's a big rooted Vermont DIY that's going to go on August 1st through 8th. So Laura, when you have service next week, you'll have to tell us all about it.
I will.
Or maybe you have good enough service now. Oh, maybe not. Somebody's not happy.
No, she's not super pleased at the moment. I'll tell you guys about it next week.
If you weren't on when we started, Laura is in a van. They're traveling cross country. Hazel's never met her little grandparents, so they've decided to go van life.
That's right.
That's okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if nobody has any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it. Isabel, thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
We really appreciate all the great information that you shared, and I will look forward to having some events on the calendar next year to do some of these. Lots of great comments coming in. All right, thank you all so much, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Oh. Thank you.